Hi everyone, welcome to another in the series Real Estate Conversations with Ruban Jamaica. Today we're doing things a little different. It's a Sunday and we have a special guest on the island, Sharday Dakers Hilton. She's visiting the island from the UK and we have been friends pretty much since about 2022 when she was passing, one of our construction sites and she stopped to see what was happening. So since then we have kept in touch. She has been back on the island a couple of times and she has done a little feature on Ruban Jamaica as well. So what's happening today is that she has been given the green light to do a hosting gig with us. So she's going to be having some questions and that's going to pretty much be our main event for today. All right. So Sharday, thanks for making a little bit of time for us.
No problem.
I think she booked her ticket this morning, so she'll be off. She'll be off the island in a couple of hours, right?
Something like that.
But we rather do things in person. You get me? And it's kind of a little on the last minute side, but that's fine. It's a Sunday. We're kind of just in chill mode, right? And the questions that she has, I think they're going to be, pretty important and interesting because Sharday is an upcoming architect,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
And so I'm just going to give her the opportunity to take over the reins. And as we say in Jamaica, she's going to just run things. So Sharday, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Hey guys, welcome back to another conversation with Raymond about real estate. So as you guys know, I'm here in Ruban Jamaica, and basically a lot of people have been asking me a lot of questions in regards to living in Jamaica, what real estate is like, what it's like to buy, to sell, renting, all that kind of stuff. And that's really been my focus about Jamaica recently, seeing as I'm back and forth a lot and I'm in the process of trying to set up my foundation and roots here. So I'm really here to give the young people, I'm really here to give everyone that is really curious about settling in Jamaica, about real estate in Jamaica. I'm here basically to answer you guys' questions. So I've even got some questions from you guys. So we're here, we've got a Raymond, and we're about to just do the thing. So the first question I've actually got for you, Raymond, is how do you buy land in Jamaica? Like, what is the process?
All right, so that is really we refer to that as kind of like an open question.
Yeah.
So if you want to buy land in Jamaica, you have two main options. The first option is to buy cash, and that involves the process of a purchase where you preferably get an attorney to set up a sale agreement. The property has to be preferably registered.
Okay.
And registered land in Jamaica is considered as having a volume and folio number. In some countries it's referred to as a deed. In Jamaica we generally refer to it as a title.
Yeah.
So the process in terms of buying land, first you want to identify the land. Not just to have somebody say, oh, I'm selling a piece of land over there in such and such a parish. No. We need to get the volume and folio number. So you need to first establish the land is registered. If the land is not registered, then you have to go through the process of getting it registered. And I think that there is a challenge for persons who buy unregistered land because it's very difficult to complete the paperwork.
Yeah.
Because in the first instance, the reason it is not registered is usually a little red flag by itself.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're buying cash, you're able to navigate that a little bit. You don't want to just take up a piece of paper and say, oh, we sign and have a little agreement. You want to get an attorney to go through the process to make sure everything is good.
Yeah.
And then you can, exchange in terms of the sale process, legally, the consideration, which is the cash. And then you get your name registered on the title as the owner. That is by cash. The other main method is through a mortgage, which is getting a financial institution to put up the funds and you pay them back over a period of years, whether 15, 20, 30, 40 years. And when you're going through the institution, they definitely are going to ensure that everything is straight with the process, that the property is registered, and the due diligence is kind of overseen by the institution to make sure everything is good. So that's the two main processes of going through the purchasing of land in Jamaica.
Okay, thank you, amazing. So this question is quite interesting because usually, like, especially in the UK, when people say, they want to buy land and build, it's like, yeah, all you need is about 30 to 50,000 pounds. I know you can purchase it's about 6 million GMD, 30 grand.
How much is the pound these days? As the money them,
it's like
the rate up,
it's like 19 something, 19 something, 1.9 something.
Okay.
For like
in that region.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So the again, you're either buying land to build, or persons will buy a fixer-upper to take on that renovation, or they will buy a house that is complete.
Yeah.
Or they are buying an apartment. So just to clarify, in the United States, they refer to apartments and condos. Apartments are owned by corporations in the US. In Jamaica, quote-unquote apartments are owned by individuals or companies.
Yeah.
So we don't have the term condo in Jamaica. Legally, we don't have that term that we use. So we just refer to apartments. But that's actually done under the what we call a strata.
Yeah.
Right? Commission of Strata and corporations. Right? Now with the strata, the process of purchasing and the costs in the current market for £30,000, you're not really going to find an apartment. No. Right? And you're not going to find a house that easily. No. You are likely to find land. So if that's your budget, you're looking at land. And persons need to understand that if you're thinking about a project, don't just consider the cost for the land.
Yeah.
You have to also take into consideration sourcing funds for the construction.
Yeah.
And in that case, luckily, if you bought the land, then you can go about the process of getting a plan approved by the respective municipal authority in the parish. And then you can take your time and build, right? Or you can also get your plan approved and go to the bank to have the bank finance what's called a construction loan.
Yeah.
All right? So with £30,000, you can start by buying land, buying the land. And then if your income or if your savings or if your financial situation is fairly good, then you can go about the process of bringing an institution in. But that's a question for the individual. Not everybody is open to bringing an institution on the title because, if you have payments to be considering, if you need to be making the payments and you're not making the payments on time, you run the risk of losing the property.
Yeah.
And that's going to go through what we refer to as the most unfavorable of processes, which is where you initiate your project and you may fall on hard times. And then it goes into what we call a private treaty, where the bank in turn tries to put it on the market for somebody else to purchase. You want to try and avoid that.
Yeah.
All right. So if it's £30,000, which is around about 6 mil, thereabout, give or take, you want to ensure that, okay, let me get my little research done. And if I'm buying land for that, right, then give yourself some time to put some more funds together to build. Or if you have met, the prospective qualification requirements for the bank, you can go and do a mortgage to build on that.
Okay, thank you. So, like, could £30,000, could that get you like a nice piece of land somewhere? Like, what kind of land could that get you? Could you get somewhere in Kingston? You know, I know it varies depending on
it's relative, and the truth is that we always say that persons who are on YouTube are really doing their research most of the time, getting information most of the time, and we commend them for that. And that's one of the reasons why we do the conversations, because we create an avenue for persons to get information, right? In the instance where you talk about a nice piece of land, you have to be careful. Jamaica has 14 parishes. Different persons have different routes. A lot of persons will want to go back to the community that their family originated from to continue the process of creating family, creating heritage, building that out. The more you get to the urban centers or the coast, then the cost of the land goes up significantly. So, for example, we build mainly between Aracabessa on the north coast, that's in St. Mary Parish, across to Discovery Bay, that's in St. Anne Parish. A lot in that zone, I'm going to switch the currency on you now. A lot in that zone now, you have to start on the coastline, you're looking at 100K USD.
Okay.
And you haven't laid out, you don't even have a room yet. That's just the land.
Cool.
If you're going gated, trying to get land in a gated community, then you're going up from 100. That's on the coastline, like literally on the coastline with views. As you go further inland, then the price starts to fall. So if you make your way all the way inland, trust me, you can find a little development and you can get property for maybe currently 3 million Jamaican dollars, right? Which would be about £15,000, give or take, right? Further inland. But persons, again, depending on their roots, they may choose to go back, into a more rural setting, and they're comfortable doing that. But we can tell you that the majority of persons, especially if it is that they're planning to visit frequently or they want to move or just have a good route on the island, most times they want to be closer to the urban center, if not in the urban center, or closer to the coast, if not on the coast, with the ocean view. And that's when the meter starts to go up in terms of price.
Oh, got it. Okay. Okay, thank you. I hope that's very helpful for you guys. I think it should be. This is very clear, very to the point. It's clear to clear to understand. So yeah, thank you for that.
And we refer to that as the price and the location.
Yeah.
That's the interaction right there. So if your location is going to be prime and you're going to be gated, then it's top dollar.
Yeah.
Especially if you're on the coastline. But if you're going up in the hills, up in the rural areas, where you may not have all the services that you want, or you're not close to the as close to the urban center that you would like to be for banking, and hospitals and schools, and there's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah.
So I know of persons coming back to the island. In some instances, they have medical condition.
Yeah.
They are not trying to go in an area that doesn't provide reasonable timed access to a medical facility. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because in instances of where most persons are coming from, whether US, Canada, UK, Europe, whichever side of the globe, in most instances, the access to medical services is fairly reasonable.
Yeah.
If you're coming back, you got to do your research, depending on what the situation may be. So let me give you a simple example. I have a friend that recently has gone into dialysis because he has issues with his kidney.
Okay.
He has to be close to a dialysis center because he has to go in 2 times a week. And he's assessed to go within another year, he has to be going in 3 times a week.
Okay.
So those dialysis centers now predominantly are in the urban centers like Kingston. So if that's the situation, then you want to stay fairly close.
Yeah.
Rather than be driving 2-3 hours to make it twice a week. That's draining.
Yeah.
To be honest. And there are a lot of other factors, but it's medical. It could be a case where you're gonna have a kid that's gonna be going to school. You want them to get into a good school. Here you're moving back. Where do you choose to go? Is it a prep school in terms of the level? Is it a high school or is it a university? So again, there are factors that you have to take into consideration. So every individual or every couple making that decision, they have to put everything on the table and then have that discussion to see what works for them. We know what the hot spots are in terms of returning, Ocho Rios, like I said, on the coast, St. and St. Mary. We know about Negril, we know about Portland, we know about the Mandeville, St. Elizabeth, we know about St. Thomas warming up now, you get me? But in each instance, you have to take into consideration those factors that are important to the individual. So you don't just follow the crowd, do your research. That's what we always encourage. Right.
That's great, thank you. Okay, so the next question I have for you is, what is the best way for a young person in Jamaica to buy their first property? Like, how can they go about that? Like, what kind of advice can you kind of give to a young person in Jamaica that wants to buy their first property, wants to get onto the property ladder?
All right, that's again a very open question. Try to keep it as tight as possible. So, when we say young, you would have realized that I've lost the beard, right? So I'm doing a bit of time travel right now. But young is, I would say, 30 and under. Now, if you're going to buy in that age, main factors to take into consideration again, your individual situation, where you are in terms of professionally. Is it that your job is such that you're free to travel, depending on where you may choose to work, or in terms of your industry? We know where the key locations are. And that's why the majority of persons tend to stick around the urban center, because that's where the majority of the opportunities lie.
Yeah.
As you go further rural, then the possibilities tend to shrink in terms of employment and so on, and in terms of the ability to earn an income. So if we say a young person, let's say there's a farmer who is a young farmer in his 20s now, and he wants to buy land to, is he trying to build a house? Is he trying to do a farm to expand his business? Is he trying to do both? And what important elements to consider on the reverse for someone that's, say, out of university, is now in, let's say, marketing or one of those corporate jobs. Again, you're trying to stick again closer to the urban center. Are you in Kingston? Are you in Ocho Rios? Are you in Mandeville? Are you in Montego Bay? The factors that you have to consider is literally based on those variables before you even think about the process. Buying. But usually the first step is going to be putting some savings together, you need to put at least 10%
Yeah.
down for a deposit. But you also need closing costs. You also need fees for the bank to close on the property. And depending on what exactly the property is, you need to set aside some funds for the rainy day.
Yeah.
Example number one, you're buying an apartment. Apartments in Jamaica are run under the Strata Act. Those apartments require owners pay a monthly maintenance fee.
Yeah.
That monthly maintenance fee is determined by so each strata has a committee. They make the determination, right, together as a group as to what it will cost. We have seen instances where somebody, a purchaser, is totally neglectful of or unaware of the need to have monthly funds set aside to pay that fee.
Yeah.
They sometimes are barely able to make the mortgage. It's tight. When that fee comes into play, that fee can be, I'll give you in Jamaican to make it easier. It can be $8,000, $5,000 if you're lucky. But in some instances now we're seeing closer to $15,000 for that maintenance fee, which is closer to like 100 US. I don't want the UK people to kill me, right? But I give it to you in the US, it's easier for you to work the conversion, right? So what happens is that I've seen where a family member of mine bought an apartment and the committee decided they wanted to repaint the entire apartment. They didn't have enough money in the kitty to take on the painting job. So they did assess and had everybody pay for like 2 years, double their regular fee in order to generate enough money to do the painting.
Yeah.
So along with maintenance costs like that, there is sometimes cost for security, which sometimes some of the apartments have physical security personnel there.
Yeah.
That can be a little bit more expensive, especially if you're going with some of the established security companies. So just looking to even say buy an apartment, you have to be mindful of those costs. I wouldn't say they're hidden, but you just have to do your research.
Yeah.
So naturally, you're going to put some deposit together. You have local institutions, for example, the banks, that, like I said, will provide you with the option of doing your mortgage with them. And there's also the National Housing Trust that takes mandatory contributions from persons who are paid here locally through what we refer to as the PAYE system. So those deductions are sent to the NHT. Based on your income, you're qualified for a certain amount of benefit from the National Housing Trust. But they have a scale. So if you're earning X amount, then you may qualify from the trust for Y amount that you can then use. And if that amount that you qualify for is not sufficient enough for the property that you have in mind, then you can bring a financial institution, a bank in, and do a mortgage where both are contributing to the fund pool on your behalf for you to try. But that still comes down to your earning. So the younger persons will have a little greater difficulty to establish the savings from their earnings and have a good track record of the earnings in order to get qualified through the bank. Because you're not going to just get a job today and you're getting a good income and you're going to the bank tomorrow and you're going to say, okay, yeah, man, let's do this. They want to do an assessment. There's something that they call a debt service ratio. They want to assess how is your expenses monthly, how is that being undertaken. Do you have student loan payments to make? Do you have car payments to make? So you have to do a little financial assessment as a young person, like I said, 30 and under, before you go in. I usually recommend to person say, here's what you do. Get the car loan, which is usually 5 years, out the way. So you have more income to go toward the mortgage. Rather than just buying the car and then you want to just jump into a mortgage situation next, right? And then the other part of the The other part of it, which most persons do not like to talk about, is, and I know some persons will want to kill me for this, right? When you decide to undertake a purchase of a property, it is one of the longest commitments that you will ever find yourself undertaking. Unfortunately, relationships may not outlast the mortgage as they, and this is factual, right? In the majority of cases. So you have to, again, be very careful of going in with somebody, a spouse, right? And you're already in tight because now you're combining incomes to get a better property.
Yeah.
And then one person decides to call it quits. You're looking at the unfortunate possibility of your property now going on the private treaty to be resold. You're going to be losing a lot of equity on that, and it can be very untidy.
Yeah.
So you want to take your time to kind of ease yourself in, and if possible, try to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, because a lot of persons don't know that, especially when you go through a mortgage, it's 5 years before you start really seeing any equity from your contributions, where you can actually sell and still pull a little piece of cash from the sale.
Yeah.
Because of all the fees that are involved in the process.
Yeah, got you.
So if you buy this year, but you're selling next year, it's highly unlikely that the market would move in such a dramatic fashion that you'd be literally making enough out of it to even get something out of it.
Yeah.
Most persons that sell, within the first 3 years, they will sell at a loss because of the fees involved in the process. It's long term, so you want to kind of buckle in a little bit, right? So we say savings, work on your savings, get your savings up, situate the other aspects of your business, the car, your student loans and so on that you may have, because the moment you press that button, or as you say, squeeze the trigger to get into that mortgage situation as a young person, it's going to be a long road ahead.
Yeah.
Right? So you're talking about 30 years, 20, because at below 30, you get a longer period of time to repay. So you're talking about a 30-year commitment.
Yeah.
You get me? So it's critical.
Don't be scared, guys.
Yeah, don't be scared. Just information. We're just giving you
we're just giving you information. It's just the reality of it. You really want to know and understand this before you get into something. Because me, myself, I'm like, I want to buy an apartment out in Jamaica. And I'm just, I've sat down with family members and they've been like, this. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me know what I'm doing, sort of thing. So it's good to know this so that you don't jump into something blind and,
True.
You're drowning.
True.
So, yeah, thank you so much for that. So another question I want to ask you is, so as a young person, I guess like under 30,
right.
So probably like 20 to 30s that wants to return back to Jamaica and invest back in Jamaica in terms of buying property and stuff, like, why would you say Jamaica is a good place to do that?
All right, so definitely Jamaica is a good place, right, to consider. Because you were born in the UK, right?
Yeah.
All right, so it's good, and we applaud the fact that even though you were not born here, but you have the roots, you have the heritage, there's an interest to anchor or create and establish, a bit of roots here as well. Yes, it is a good place, but again, we encourage persons just do the research, make sure that you're making the right decisions, and to make those decisions, make sure that your information and your source of information is good. Don't necessarily just rely on one person saying so.
Yeah.
Try and do a little bit of check to see what's really the best option for you. You get what I'm saying? So, like I said, being on the younger side, you may have a little bit of disposable income. Maybe you want to go the mortgage route. Do you connect with like a local bank here and do a property? And if you're not here, what decisions are you going to be making regarding the property? Are you going to be going into like the Airbnb? You have to be careful, because there are some apartment complexes that are against the Airbnb now, and we're seeing where a lot of the committees in terms of the stratas, they're meeting now and they're making those decisions to ban Airbnb within some of the smaller, especially some of the smaller complexes.
Yeah.
And we understand why, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, because persons who would have bought into these properties, for example, to raise their families, they may not necessarily be open to strangers
Yeah.
just popping in every other couple of days like that with their younger kids,
Yeah.
especially growing, in that space. So you want to check with the development, check with the developer, check if, for example, there are bylaws and see what's allowed and what's acceptable. You don't want to buy with the intention and then after a couple of months in, you cannot
realize, yeah.
go that route. So your option at that point would be a long-term tenant.
Yeah.
And that's not going to give you as much returns maybe as you would have thought
Yeah.
by going the Airbnb route. So those are some things to consider. But definitely, Jamaica is definitely the place to be right now, in terms of generally in this neck of the woods, for many, many reasons,
Yeah.
for sure.
What do you think Jamaica will look like in about 5-10 years' time?
Well, the best way to judge that is looking at what it was like 5-10 years ago, right? And we're seeing development moving in the positive direction. We're seeing where the markets, the real estate market is actually, growing.
Yeah.
We have seen where locally the credit bureaus have been established. That has created a little tightening in terms of the market, but that gives the market a better outlook, because the buyers that are coming in are actually, properly and thoroughly checked. You just really never know what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
But it's better to know that, all right, an assessment was done.
Yeah.
And this person is the right person coming in. Because if you, for example, have a complex that's been built and persons are planning to buy, you want persons to be able to occupy, develop, keep that development alive.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than persons coming in buying and then some persons may not be able to manage like the mortgage and so on, and then things get a little difficult over time. The place kind of start to, not everybody's contributing as they should to the maintenance fund and so on. The place going to run down, as we say in Jamaica. So you want to make sure that in terms of your decisions going in, you just do your research. That's the main thing that we will always tell people.
Yeah.
Do a little research, check it out, make sure that it's legit.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And
So another question I have, someone actually asked me, what do you need to have to buy property in Jamaica? Like, do you need citizenship? Do you need just TRN? Like, what do you need?
all right, so the main thing that you need is a tax registration number.
Yeah.
That's the TRN number. Once you have that, you're able to buy.
Okay. Lovely.
You're able to buy. Yeah.
Easy, lovely.
Right.
And I think, guys, you can get that out here, and I think you can actually also get it online. So again, as Raymond has been saying all this time, do your research.
Right.
But I do believe that you can actually get it online if you are overseas. You don't actually have to be in Jamaica to
Right.
get
You
your
can make
TRN.
an application
Yeah.
online for that. Right.
Lovely. Okay. So another question I have is, people this tends to happen a lot. I think me and you've actually spoken about this before in the
Right.
past. I want to ask it again so that everyone can kind of have this knowledge and advice. But if I live overseas and I want
Yes.
to start building back home, I want to start building Jamaica, what is the safest way to go about that to ensure that when I come, I actually have a house or a building, like there's actually stuff going on? How do you find someone that you feel like you can trust? What's the best way to kind of go about that?
All right. So it's funny you asked that question, because just last week we got an email from someone overseas that's actually creating a database of builders who are considered reputable builders,
Yeah.
so that persons from overseas can go the route of checking in with those reputable builders to select a potential contractor for their project.
That's really good.
All right? Yeah, so that's good. We commend them for that. And if I'm not mistaken, that person is from the UK as well.
Okay.
So, again, in the process of doing the research, you do your checks. Who is your potential builder? And in doing that research, when you work with the bank will always ensure that there are more checks and balances done versus when you're doing it on your own. So when persons are going about it with their own cash, their own funds,
Yeah.
it's really between them and the building contractor, right? We always recommend getting a bill of quantities as the safest way to manage the construction process. And when you get a bill of quantities done, and what that is a breakdown on the cost for construction from start to finish. Every nail, every screw, like we always say. All material costs, all labor costs, everything is in that document.
Yeah.
So, say for argument's sake, you're going to be building a house for 400k USD, for example. You're not expected to just take the entire 400k and hand it over to a contractor. And then they tell you, okay, check back in 2 years or check back in a year and I'll give you the keys. That's not the process. So the building process requires a scheduling of the processes.
Yeah.
So when you have that schedule, then you can break down the construction project in phases. And we recommend you have a phase 1, you highlight and indicate what it is that's going to be covered under phase 1.
Yeah.
That information is taken from the bill of quantities. If you pay over funds for phase 1, you do not pay over funds for phase 2 or 3 until phase 1 is complete.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the same approach the banks take.
Yeah.
So we recommend individuals take the same approach. The challenge that I have found is that the bill of quantities comes at a cost of sometimes 1% of the construction cost itself,
Okay.
or sometimes 1.5% of the cost. And then you sometimes pay independently a quantity surveyor to oversee the project on your behalf. But we tell persons it's a 1% that's worth it.
Yeah.
Because then you have that independent check and balance. Persons will say, oh, but I'd rather put that 1% in the building. And then you run into problems.
Yeah.
And that's actually a majority of times where that will happen, right? So get a bill of quantities done based on your design. Because persons also sometimes, unfortunately, have a disconnection between reality. What is the cost to actually do the project and how much money I have? Most individuals will want the contractor to tell them, yeah man, can bill it for that,
Yeah.
just to get things going. They don't have that quantities, they don't have that document that is actually showing you that yes, 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 and yes,
Yeah.
this process and this method is actually going to add up at the end of the day. So we encourage persons, get a bill of quantities done, and then phase your project. You can go, depending on the amount, you can go 6 phases, you can go 8 phases. So as you complete each phase, then you turn over the payment. So you pay over to the contractor for phase 1. Phase 1 gets completed, you get that checked out independently to say, okay, yes, everything has been done according to the quantities. Okay, now we move over into phase 2. That's the best way to manage the process if you're not physically here. Because you can also be physically here and still be at a loss to the process. So the BQ, or that kind of breakdown, that cost layout and the schedule, gives you a bit of detail in terms of the approach. And like I said, what we have done and what we recommend is mirror how the banks operate in that regard.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So another question I have that someone asked me was, where is a good place to rent as a young professional out here?
All right, so I don't know if that's a trick question. So here's the thing. As a young professional, you're renting, your location is going to be, of course, your main factor.
Yeah.
Where is work? Do you have kids? Where they're going to be going to school? Renting gives you that ability to be flexible.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more deeper in terms of decision when you're buying, because then you're rooted there for
Yeah.
the most part. Renting gives you the flexibility to just go closer to the action that you're having. So, okay, I'm working in New Kingston.
Yeah.
Where's the best place for me to reside? Do I want to be in St. Andrew? Do I want to be in St. Catherine? Do I want to travel from out of town? Do I want to be traveling up from Clarendon, Old Harbour, that side of the world? Do I want to be coming in from Linstead? Those decisions are made primarily based on security factors. As a young professional, the ability to get to work on time and to navigate and ensure that, again, you're kind of safe, where you are in terms of the process. So the main thing is that, like I said, when you're renting, it's very flexible for you to try to get as close to the action as possible. Some persons will take other things into consideration, like, okay, I can't manage the Kingston heat. I want to be chill. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So some persons want to stay more in the hillside, as far as Irish Town, up in St. Andrew, as far as Stony Hill, Red Hills, up in the hills, so they will come down into the city for work, and then they will, go back home. If these individuals don't have their own private transportation, then of course they have to consider public transportation and try to stay along those routes.
Yeah.
You get me? As much as possible. So, try to understand especially where is the bus running, or no, a lot of persons have been using, some of the mobile transport apps. Uber is very popular here now. InDrive is very popular here. So those apps have allowed the transportation side to be a little bit more flexible equally, so you can sort of have those options to get in to work and get back home safely.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. So another question I have is, say I've just bought an apartment in Jamaica,
Right.
and I want to find someone to rent it to. How can I go about doing that?
All right, so the easiest thing to do is to hire a real estate professional, and they can do one of two things. So they can just find you a tenant, which is a one-off contract, or you can actually hire a real estate professional that also offers property management.
Okay.
So they will ensure that your tenant is qualified, paying the rent, and they will manage the entire process for you. So there are larger real estate companies here, and there are some smaller real estate companies. So again, you can do your research and see which one would probably fit best. So it would be communicating with the agent as a direct line, and then the agent now will take on the work to communicate with the respective tenants. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. So that same young professional that we talked about may have gotten a job offer in Montego Bay, and they have been in the property for maybe 6 months, and they need to move immediately to Montego Bay for work. So that real estate agent can then find a replacement tenant to get into the property. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Versus you being overseas trying to navigate this by trying to advertise online on TikTok or whatever the case may be, and there's no real checks and balance in terms of assessment of the individual that's coming in. You understand?
Yeah.
Because sometimes somebody will love a property that you may have, and if you say, okay, persons are afraid to ask people like, okay, so I need an income verification letter from you, from your workplace, to show me that you are able to pay the rent, because I don't want you to be doing this on a prayer. You get what I'm saying? I want to ensure that the income that you have is sufficient to actually cover the rent on a monthly basis, because we don't like, as investors, to get stories at the end of the month when the rent is due that Murphy's Law is in full effect, and it's not working out. You get what I'm saying? Because remember, sometimes you are depending on that rental income to pay the mortgage. And even though, of course, we encourage you to put aside the rainy day, we don't necessarily want you to have to be going into the rainy day fund. You understand?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So this question I have is, it's quite interesting. I feel like I don't know, I feel like as young people in general, especially in the UK at the moment, like, you know, the cost of living and stuff has gone up. So we kind of find it a bit difficult to be able to move out of our parents' home and stuff. But a question I kind of wanted to ask for, like, a young person in Jamaica, they don't have much money and they want to get into a property ladder. What advice and encouragement, what kind of direction could you give them? This might be a hard question, but...
You know, the main answer for that question is going to come down to risk and risk tolerance for the individual, right? So, are you the type of person to make a big risk on things? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some persons are trying to buy the lotto ticket, to try to get the winnings to go and buy. We
Yeah.
know that that's like one in whatever crazy odds that is, right? But you want to kind of just steady down, and most importantly, look at how the markets have progressed over the last five years in increments. Because you may be planning now, but your plan of action is not going to initiate until 5 years from now,
Yeah.
or even 10 years from now. So part of that decision comes through research. We always, we live on that word.
Yeah.
Do the research. So if it is that currently, I think where the numbers are now, it's roughly, and I'm giving you the Jamaican now, so it's roughly 10,000 per million for a mortgage, approximately, based on where the mortgage rates are now in local currency. In US currency, the rates are a little different, but in terms of the local currency. So, as difficult as it may be to digest it, if the property is at 30 million and it's $10,000 per million, your monthly payment is hovering around 300,000 a month. And that's just the reality. Not everybody will be able to afford that.
Yeah.
Understand? There is a point when you have to embrace reality in terms of the numbers, right? So, doing your assessment with a professional, preferably in a mortgage capacity, they can do what is called that screening process, or we call it a pre-qual for the mortgage. So that will assess your current situation and how much disposable income you have to go towards a property purchase. And then the disposable income will determine what is the purchase range of the property that you are going to buy. So, if I'm earning 200,000 Jamaican a month, my debt service ratio calculation, because I've paid off my car note, I've paid off my student loan, so I have this 200,000 coming in after tax. Good? Now, in that instant, the bank is saying, okay, you can't pay the entire $200,000 to us. We're going to allow you to pay only 40% of that money towards the mortgage.
Yeah.
So we're looking at roughly, say, $80,000 Jamaican, right? At 10,000 per million, follow me closely now. At 10,000 per million, that's $8 million that you're looking at right there, realistically. And then that's where you trigger the NHT, which has a much lower rate than the banks.
Yeah.
And the NHT may bring you in based on that 200,000, they are pulling you in, I think now maybe closer to 6.5 million. So with the 6.5 million plus the 8 million, then you're at 14 and a half, if my math is correct, right? And then you might have a little bit of savings that you can put on it as well. So you're inching closer now to 15 million.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? That's where if couples actually have that approach of combining the income,
Yeah.
there is a better opportunity on the table for them, right? Especially, and we emphasize, especially if the income on both ends are close, then you keep coming closer and closer to where you want to go. Now, we're not telling persons to go and find somebody just because you want to buy a property, but we know that combined income will always work better. But of course, the caveat there is, as you know, if things don't work out equally, it can be a little bit of a nightmarish situation. You understand? Especially when it's time to pull, because you will find person A asking person B to buy out their portion, knowing that, hey, they can't afford to.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, okay, so we have to sell it. You get what I'm saying? And then, like I say, if you're just a couple of years in the process, as I was saying earlier, and you sell, don't think that you're walking away with sometimes anything at all.
Yeah.
Because of the fees involved in the process.
Yeah.
You understand? So, but it's life, and you have to make a decision. You know, you have to try, you have to start somewhere, so you have to just try and get things going. You get me?
100%.
But when persons are on the younger side, based on the job that they're doing, we know that the majority of those younger persons now are in the rental market rather than the market for purchasing, right? Unless they are going further up on the income earning ladder, right? Similar to what you alluded to earlier in the UK with persons, you know, staying with their parents maybe a little bit longer to put more savings together before they buy. We have also seen where in the local scene, as Jamaica has evolved, parents are now more conscious about their kids and the kids needing help.
Yeah.
So some persons are actually setting aside funds for their kids
Yeah.
to help with college so that they don't have the student loan.
Yeah.
So that automatically what happens is that they have the majority of their income to go into that real estate journey that they want to go on. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So like I say, if you get rid of the car loan, which is usually 5 years, if you went to uni and you have the student loan to pay off and you clear that, then you have, you know, that going on. And one of the other important things I want to highlight, because not only was I a real estate agent in the past, done a lot of things, you know, I was also in life insurance with my cousin, right?
Okay.
Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, right? Passed off a couple of years ago. But it's important in that instant also to use the insurance institutions to create that backup as well. You understand? And again, if you realize in all mortgages, you have to get life insurance. Because what happens is that if one party passes off, God forbid, then there will be funds generated from that to clear their portion and sometimes just clear the mortgage, you know, altogether.
Yeah.
You know, it might sound away, but we don't tell nobody if you go kill nobody, to go benefit. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but the system is the system. And again, we encourage persons just do the research.
Yeah.
And when we have these type of conversations, it's really for persons we know who are kind of digging, trying to dig deep to get answers to their questions, to be able to make the right decisions, right? So if you have any doubt, reach out to a banker tomorrow morning or today and get a pre-qualification assessment done.
Okay.
And that's going to be based on your raw income situation. And if you're watching and you're brave enough, drop some numbers in on the comment section and let's see what numbers are coming out. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, interest rates have moved, especially since COVID, and things haven't really stabilized much regarding the interest rates. So mortgage rates are equally, you know, on the higher end.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, it was $5,000 and $6,000 per million on the mortgage, right? So the other thing to note is, sometimes if there's a crisis, the banks will also potentially move the income, even though they will move the payment up a little bit, even though your income may not necessarily have moved.
Yeah.
And that's why we encourage, again, you know, the rainy day funds.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So sometimes a bank will make an announcement or you get a little email to say, okay, your interest rate was 8%, we're now moving it to 8.5. It may not seem like a big thing to you, but literally when you start to look at the numbers, it can be a significant shift.
Yeah.
You understand? So do the qualification, the pre-qualification with the banks. It's free. And then the pre-qualification will tell you where you need to be based on what you need or you think you need to buy.
Got you.
You get me?
Yes.
So apartments now, pretty pricey. But don't forget the maintenance fee in addition to the cost for the mortgage.
Yeah.
Good? That's number one. Number two, if you're buying a house, be very conscious about where it is. If it's a fixer-upper, be very conscious about what it will take to get it fixed up.
Yeah.
Is it something you're going to take on in 5 years, 10 years? Is it something that you're going to do cash or go back to the bank to do that refinancing process and have them fund the renovations for you? Get what I'm saying? And that's why in Jamaica we encourage persons, especially with the house, if they are within a space and they can get that additional unit built on for additional income, go that route as well.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So you can buy a house, fix up a section, rent it out. And the rent from that section can help to offset the cost for your mortgage payments if you're making mortgage payments.
Yeah.
You get me? So, yeah, that's a part of the process. There's a lot more to it, you know, but we are trying to keep it, you know.
Keep it, yeah.
Yeah.
Get to the point. Okay,
Nice and
great.
tight.
Thank you. Okay, so the last question that I have for you.
Already?
Yeah, ready?
All right. That's it.
I mean, we can do a part 2 another time, you know.
No, we have to. We have to.
Oh my gosh, so
We have to. So
definitely.
let me not cut you, but so for persons who have made it this far in the series, feel free to drop some questions in on the comment section so that when we're connecting again, we can actually look at those questions. We are very busy, right? So sometimes the questions that you may ask under the comment section, you may not get an immediate response, structured response to it, right? But in instances where we can, we will make an attempt to do that. So
Yeah.
just bear that in mind. But we can always put those together for the next conversation that we'll be having.
Yeah.
So you say the final one.
Final one.
Cha-cha.
Okay, so so for a young person that's finding it a challenge to know what they want to do, or you know, they feel there isn't much opportunities for them here in Jamaica, what advice and direction can you give them?
All right. That question is a very important question. I take it personal because I'm what you call a countryman. So we're born in the rural areas. We have dreams. We dream big, yes, but life is really about giving it a shot.
Yeah.
You understand? Taking some chances, you know, trying to work through some of the established channels. You get me? So you're young, you know, you may not have gone to uni. You may not have, as a result of not going, put yourself in a position to earn on a certain scale.
Yeah.
To be able to buy on a certain scale. You understand? So, you see, personal development is an important part. You need a plan. And coming from local, rural circumstances is very different from persons who are sometimes in the city. So remember, in life, there are always advantages and disadvantages, and you have to find the advantages that you can within a situation. Yeah? I know a lot of persons who want to go to university, right? They have the qualifications. They did well in high school. They got the subjects that they need, the C-sex subjects, the CAPE subjects that they need, but they just weren't able to find funding to go into university because they pretty much were taking care of themselves in the process. They had to eat, so they had to work. And then the type of work that they were engaging in, they didn't have the time to even study part-time.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get stuck in that cycle. Self-assessment is very important because that's where you always take a break, take a reality check, so to speak, assess what's really happening, and look at the trajectory. Is this taking me where I want to go? If you get a yes, that's good. Then you look at the timeline. Is it going to take me there quick enough?
Yeah.
Get me? We know that sometimes the system and life in general can seem a little challenging. Life is not a cakewalk. It's not easy for everybody. Some persons have skills, some persons have talents with music, some with sports. Persons have different advantages when it comes to talents. So if it is that, you say, okay, I need to make some adjustment. What can those adjustments in turn do for my plan that I have? Because it might just look a little bleak now. In Jamaica, for example, we know that the call centers are providing that next level employment out of high school for persons.
Yeah.
But the reality is now that we are still seeing some university persons, even though they were doing sometimes working in the call centers part-time to help offset costs for going to university. Even after they have left the university, sometimes the job market is so tight that they are still working at the call centers. So they are not able to elevate and get into their respective fields that they actually studied for. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Especially more on the social side. So if you go in the hardcore professionals, right, the doctors, the lawyers, and so on, they will sometimes always be able to get a better anchor.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you go to university here instead of like international relations, you may not be able to just get that anchor that you want in your professional line to get it going. And that's where you have to just always assess, you know, the situation, right? Take a realistic assessment of your situation. Every couple of months, I would say, you kind of do that. Look at what it is. Am I pushing out enough? Am I making enough decisions? You don't want to get complacent.
Yeah.
Life is competitive. You get what I'm saying? Nothing is going to get handed to you. You have to just understand that. And then you have to look at how you're going to create it. And we know that things happen along the line that make it even more difficult than it was before.
Yeah.
Some persons have kids. Talking about additional expenses. Talking about breaking up with your spouse. So now everything comes down on you and you want to give your child what you never got for yourself. You get what I'm saying? It can get really challenging. And for some persons, it's multiple kids. You get what I'm saying? With multiple expenses, the school fees, you know what I mean? It can get overwhelming for the average person, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I would say, okay, as part of that assessment, that self-assessment with the reality check in with the mortgage officer. See what the numbers are looking like. Do your pre-qual. When you do your pre-qual, okay, I need to move my income. The beauty about being in Jamaica now is that while you work, you still have the option to work part-time, online. The internet has provided that opportunity.
Yeah.
You can seek additional income streams.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? To offset your main income stream that you may have, right? And online, for example, gives you that flexibility. You get me? So sometimes I kind of sit back and watch the trends. So like sometimes it's persons, you know, trying to set up the online stores, you know, buying stuff on Shein and selling it back, and you know, you try.
Yeah.
You never know. Probably your taste where you have, you're going to just be able to build up that clientele and you get things going. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and you have that additional income. We know the rule of 80-20. Everybody is really always trying to ease into the 20%, but reality is reality. It always almost stays with that range. You get me? But the self-assessment, try to get yourself in there and move along, and then just be conscious about the situation.
Yeah.
Eat good, exercise. I myself, I've lost close to 60 odd pounds, basically almost 70 pounds. You get what I'm saying? Knowing that as I get a little older now, the challenges in medical can become overwhelming for many reasons. And doctor has always been saying, hey, you have too much weight, you need to get off some of the weight. There are little things that you can do to change the outcome of the bigger picture. It's not going to be a one bang and everything is going to change. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Take your time, do the assessment, make the little adjustments, It's almost like you're tuning an engine. You take your time, you know, do the assessment, make your tweaks, and that's how it is. And then gradually, you assess what possibilities there are. Make sure that you're keeping the right company. Don't spend too much time on things that are not going to bring you like reasonable, positive feedback.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? There are persons, for example, now who are, you know, pushing out high on podcasts, for example.
Yeah.
Getting information out. A lot of people spend a lot of time on what we may refer to as junk material that doesn't present them with informative,
Yeah.
right? The informative side of things, but some people need a laugh. So it's also important in the process. And that's where now you come to the most important part of everything, which is the balance. How do you balance everything out?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Do you need to reconfigure your time to spend some time now on the other side of things?
Yeah.
Push the positivity. You get what I'm saying? To try and make it work. You have to just make that decision as you go along. You get me? So
100%.
that's as much as we can say, you know, in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Roman. I enjoyed this, and I know that everyone else would have, like, you know, really enjoyed this conversation, really had something to take from it. So it's honestly an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Anytime.
And yeah.
Anytime. I know you'll be back in a few weeks.
Of course. A few weeks. Yeah.
Love Jamaica, yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we want to thank you, you know, for popping by with us. You get me, and we're hopeful that if it's even one person would have gotten some information that they didn't have before to help them, you know, with their decision making in real estate.
Yeah.
And like I said, guys, you know, you can hit the comment section. Let us know what you're thinking about. If you have additional questions, and we'll try to see, you know, how we can set that up. And then as soon as Sade, you know, is back on the island, then we can, you know, run into some other questions again.
Yeah.
Get it going. Who knows? We might go live next time.
What?
Yeah. Do the right thing. Hear that?
Right.
Yeah. All right. So we want to thank you guys, you know, for joining us. Those who made it to the end. You get me? Again, we hope that, you know, there was at least some element of information that was critical to you, you know, help you with the decision making. And until next time.
Until next time.
Big up. Thanks for checking in.
Yeah, thanks.
I don't know what the thing is. That's it.
Read it.
Yeah.
Lovely.